everyone, and welcome to our first study information day of this year. Today, we'll have a lot in store for you, so keep your heads here. My name is Sandra Veresa, and I'm the International Outreach Coordinator here at DAE. And today, we'll go over all of the majors we have here at DAE. Our lecturers and major coordinators will be here to answer all your questions. We'll also ask them a few questions, so make sure if you're there for anything you would like to know, send all your questions in the chat and we'll get right to them. So I would like to thank you all for joining in, and after this, we'll start with our first major game graphics production. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back, everyone. Today with me we have Dries de Rekkere, the major coordinator of game graphics production, who is here to answer all your questions. Welcome, Dries.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today. Um, game graphics production, by far one of the most popular majors
hmm
in DAE. Why is that?
I think mostly it's because it's quite flashy. A lot of stuff that we make looks super cool. Is very it pops out a lot. But that doesn't mean that the other majors don't make cool stuff either. So definitely check them out as well. Like if you want to make some cool explosions or do cool visual effects for movies, for example, that's also an option, right? So it's not because we make cool visual stuff that it's the only viable major. Um, That's also a lot of students that come to DA are interested in characters, creating characters as well, and we in GGP offer quite a nice curriculum for creating characters, so that really helps as well, of course.
Yeah. Well, the curriculum changes a lot, right? And now there's quite a few changes that still happened for game graphics production.
Yes.
What are the most recent changes? I know in the second year you can pick either tech or style.
Mhm.
What exactly is the difference between them?
So in the previous iteration of GGP, we had a lot of different choices in the second year, which caused a lot of bloating in the way that our curriculum worked. So we cut a whole bunch of choices, and we made sure that you can now choose one or the other. You either go more towards style and understanding style, creating your own style, more drawing, also creating characters, making characters in 3D, or you go more technical, so the tech minor, which is more about game engines, creating environments in game engines, automating processes through programming, through scripting, um, which builds on all the things you see in the first year. The biggest change, though, is that we have much more procedural content inside of our new iteration of GGP. What does that mean? Basically, you're making 3D using programming skills. You're going to make a 3D object that can change according to parameters, according to your input. For example, I want to create a tower, and that tower may have different sides, or it is this high, and then the entire 3D model changes according to how you input those parameters. And that's not relatively, that's not that new, but it is a relatively new technique that is becoming bigger and bigger in the game industry. That's not necessarily replacing other techniques, but it's a new important stream in 3D graphics that we definitely don't want to miss, and that's very crucial for new 3D artists that they at least have a basis of that. And if you choose the tech minor in the second year, you get a much more fleshed out version of that. Or if you're more interested into characters and style, then you go for the style minor, of course.
Is the style minor technical still? Does it still have technical elements? Like, for instance, math. How technical does it get? How much math do you actually need to know? How hard is it? So, if somebody that's really struggling with all the
Mhm.
programming and math part in high school,
Mhm.
how would they handle it?
If they're already struggling with the math part in high school, they're gonna struggle in the first year and not in the minor in the second year. The first year is really where you learn all the math that you need. You've got AMPF, so Applied Math and Physics Fundamentals. You've got your programming for Artist 1, programming for Artist 2. You've got procedural introduction. Those are all very technical courses which require quite a bit of math. And we suggest for GGP that you have at least 3 hours of math a week in your in your middle school, in your high school, so that you are well prepared for when you start in GGP. There is a difference though in the second year. So if you go with the style minor, there's quite a bit less math involved because you don't have any more procedural courses. You're not going to have scripting. Whereas if you go with the tech minor, you're going to have scripting 1 and 2. You're going to have procedural environments, procedural assets. So it's much more math based then. That being said, I mean, GGP is definitely not the most math-heavy curriculum inside of DA, but don't underestimate it, because a lot of students that come here, they come from art school, or they come from, for example, more, for example, more language-based curriculum in their high school, and they very much underestimate the amount of math and technical skills that you need in GGP.
So overall, you will still need to know quite a bit of math, or you will learn it during the curriculum itself.
Yes, absolutely.
So, for instance, if I'm interested in 2D or 3D and character designs and drawing a lot, would game graphics production be the major I should focus on, or is another major in DAE more suited for me instead?
There's a couple of options. So GGP definitely has a nice 2D side and a very strong 3D side, because that's the 3D side is really what we focus on. But for example, 3D animation also has a strong 2D and 3D side. Visual effects also has a strong 2D and 3D side. So it kind of depends on the context that you want to learn it in. If you want to learn it in the context of graphics for games, then you choose GGP. If you want to learn it in the context of graphics for special effects for movies, you go to visual effects. If you want to learn it in the context of animation, for like Pixar level animation, then you go to 3D animation. That being said, if you go for independent game production or you go for game development, or more programming heavy curricula, that doesn't mean you don't have any 3D or 2D skills there. In IGP, for example, you still have a lot of design in there, because those are the students that focus more on the design aspect. That's also one of the key differences. Well, not exactly the key difference, but that's also one of a big difference between GGP and IGP. GGP is about production of graphical assets, whereas IGP is about more design, and you're going to see more game design, you're going to see more graphical design, but you're also going to have business development there, which is something that GGP doesn't touch upon as well. So an IGP student is also way more focused on programming as well. They have a much heavier programming curriculum versus the GGP students, whereas the GGP student is really about just 3D production and making really nice 3D assets.
As you mentioned, there's graphics for real-time effects, there's graphics for visual effects. What is the difference actually between them, and for somebody who doesn't know what it is?
Yeah, it all comes down to interactivity, really. Real-time graphics are made so that they're interactive, right? If you give input into a game engine, you can walk around, or when you're making a shooter, you can look around, there's enemies, they react to what you are inputting into the game, into the interactive application, really. And that's what makes it real-time. The game interacts, reacts real-time to your input. Doesn't necessarily have to be a game, right? Could be just an interactive application, right? Because the graphics that we make them in the context of games, but they're still applicable to a whole bunch of different applications that just need 3D art. Whereas if we go pre-rendered, that means that the image was constructed beforehand, and you have full control over the image. And at the end, it's not interactive. It's a video, it's a movie, it is something that is not interactable, that has no input. But that means that you have way more room for making it as realistic as possible, right? A game graphics production student can get away with an environment looking a little bit still 3D, and you can still see that it's a game. We try to push it as realistic as possible, but technology can only bring us that far. Whereas a VFX student has way more room to make it as almost photoreal, right? Where it's indistinguishable from the real thing.
And what kind of students are you looking for? What kind of students should enroll into game graphics production?
Well, the thing is, and that's mainly for the entirety of DAE, not just for game graphics production, making games or making movies is a very, very multidisciplinary thing, right? You need a lot of different people with a lot of different skills coming together to make a project that is very complex. And what is very important with those people is that they have a nice balance between their technical side and their graphical side. They need to have a good eye for aesthetics and a good eye for what is nice and what looks good. But they also need to have a technical mindset where they can use their programming skills, or they can create scripts, or they can use math to solve problems to create a visual result. Right, and that's mainly for GGP, because our end result is a visual result. But if we're talking about game development, of course, we're looking way more into the programming side of things. But they still need a little bit of a graphical side, because they're still game developers. Games are still a visual medium. So,
but how much programming do they actually need?
If you look at the first year, don't underestimate it, I would say. 2/5 of your first year is programming and math. So that, and then you've got 3D1 and 3D2, so that's another fifth of your first year, that is 3D. And then we have 1/5 general skills, and we have 1/5 2D skills. So we have around 2/5 graphical stuff in the first year. 2/5 is programming based and math based skills, and then we got a fifth general skills. Now that does mean like it's almost 50-50 in that first year, right? And if people want to prepare for those mathematical and programming skills, what they should do is they should look into things like vectors, things like easy basic kinematics, like for example when a ball falls and it bounces off the ground, that kind of stuff. So simple kinematics like that. That's the core, right? If you understand vectors, if you understand trigonometry, what's a sine wave, what's a cosine, what's the unit circle, what's a basic collision, for example, of a ball. Those are some good preparations if we're talking about math. If you want to get a bit into programming, take a look at processing. There's a lot of tutorials about processing on YouTube. That's also the language that we use in our first year. And yeah, if you're interested in 3D, just take a look at Blender. It's a free software, and it is pretty close to the software that we use. We use Maya for 3D skills.
Well, I see that we have a question from the chat. So, would you teach Unreal Engine 5 or only Unreal Engine 4?
We taught Unreal Engine 4 last semester, and in the coming semester, we have most courses moving to Unreal Engine 5. Not all of them though, because there's some software still that still needs to work with Unreal Engine 4. But towards next year, I think most of us will be moving to Unreal Engine 5 because, I mean, it's the next iteration and it will probably be out of early access then.
Okay. And what other softwares are used in game graphics production apart from Unreal Engine?
So we've got Unreal, we've got, in the first year, it's mainly Maya, Photoshop, a bit of processing, which is the programming language that we use. It's not really a piece of software. Houdini, because that's the program that we use to teach procedural content and also what we use to teach math. And I think that's mostly it. And then in the second year, we go deeper into industry standard programs like Substance Painter, Quixel Megascans, Unreal, of course. Unreal is only in the second year. We don't see Game Engine in the first year yet. And then we have, let me just quickly think, Houdini, of course. ZBrush is also a big one, which we use to make digital sculpts. Basically, it's working with digital clay.
Yeah. And what about in the last year? What do students see in their last year of DAE?
So the last year is very different. In this first and second year, you have a lot of courses, you've got assignments. And in the last year, in your third year, the first semester, you don't have any classes really. You only have 2 courses, which is graduation work and your group projects. And they're both basic. So group project is a project in a group. And it's all about working together with a multidisciplinary team. You're working together with students from other majors. And then your graduation work is about creating your own project, really, your own research project, building upon the knowledge that you've acquired in the last 2 years. And then the last semester of your third year is where it all comes together, where you go to the industry and you do a 4-month internship. So that's where you really work towards throughout your entire DAE career.
Yeah. Thank you, Dries, so much. Are there any questions in the chat? Let's see. I don't see anything from my streaming crew. They say no questions. So thank you again so much for joining us. I hope this was informative for students. If you have questions later, please add them in the chat. We'll answer them for you. So make sure anything you would like to know that you actually put it in the chat and all your questions will be answered. You can also go to Teams and there's links on the Howest website where you can access Teams and you can ask your questions there as well with our lecturers. Thank you all so much for joining. And afterwards, we go to our next major, which is game development. We'll see you in a bit. And we're back with our next major for today, which is game development. With us, we have Alex van den Abele, a game development lecturer, and he is here to answer some questions. Welcome, Alex. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Hello. Game development, what is it all about? What do students need to know in order to enroll in game development, and what will they actually learn in the 3 years of DAE? Well, you mentioned a lot of programming, so it was this type of programmer, gameplay, from gameplay to engine programmer, so a lot of programming. Do they also learn anything art related? So any artistic skills, will that be covered as well in the curriculum?
Can you now hear me? Listen to my luscious voice now. All right. So maybe a little bit back then, if it wasn't clear. So we have art in our curriculum, and I'm very glad that we do, because, like I said, that's what makes you as a programmer unique in the industry. As a profile, you can always go to some computer science degree, and then you're a programmer, and you will have learned a lot of more programming stuff than you learn at our education. But because of that art part, you are up to, you can talk with your peers in a game development context, with the artists, with the game designers, etc., etc. You're on the same level, you understand their requirements, you are able to solve quickly problems that they have for them, you understand their problems, etc., etc. And that makes you such a polyvalent employee in a game development context that it's only a plus on your CV.
Yeah. So it's important to have both, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
So what about for the students who wonder if they should do game development in DAE
Mhm.
or maybe a informatica course
Yep.
somewhere else, how should they choose what they want to do?
And that's a good question. That's indeed a question that every student that considers coming here at this school should ask himself: do I want to do only programming and nothing else, or do I want to be really a game developer and know of everything that's game development related? I myself, I am a master in computer science, so I have no art skills at all. I went to a university to learn programming. Fine. I am also in the game industry for 18 years by now. It's not that going through a classical programming education that you can't go into the game development scene. But then the advantage that we can offer, if you really want to do game development, the advantage that we offer is that we have a good name. Our school is well known in the game development industry. The students are you get internships in high level studios via our school, so it gets you into the industry a lot easier. If you just if you only did programming, your portfolio is not that tailored to game development companies. So it's a little bit of an extra step then. It's not impossible. So it's a choice basically. Whatever floats your boat, actually. But if you, it's an honest choice that every student should make. I'm not saying that you should choose us because you want to do games, but if you want to broaden yourself in the game development scene purely, then you should choose us for sure. If you want to have an open door to the industry, we can offer one. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very good. I also always get questions, and it's often a very asked question of what should I choose, game development or game graphics? They're completely different, but still people doubt between those two majors.
If you're doubting by that, there's indeed quite a difference between them. Indeed, if you graduate from digital arts and entertainment, you are a bachelor in digital arts and entertainment. That's one on your diploma. And then you have the major game graphics production and the major game development. Game graphics production is what we call the artists. Game development is what we call the programmers. But we have lots of similar courses. So you are still that digital arts and entertainment student. If you like to type text, choose game development. If you if you like to make 3D meshes, choose game graphics production. It's basically that. On the other hand, what I like myself as a programmer in game development is I'm in control of what happens in the game. I'm the one writing what happens. I'm the one writing the gameplay mechanics. I'm controlling that. As a game graphics student, then you are the one creating the characters, creating the houses and everything. Okay, so that's a total different take on what you do in games. So that should be the choice. Do I want to make the content that we walk around in, or how it looks, or do I want to be in charge of how everything works? That's the choice. No more than that.
Well, I see that we have some questions from the chat.
Right.
Do you need to have any drawing skills?
For game development, drawing skills, no. I don't think you even need them for game graphics production, because they always start from the bottom. So perspective drawing and everything is something that we teach in the first year. But not at game development. It's more limited. So the goal for game development with the art courses is not that you become an artist. It's not that you are capable of creating beautiful worlds and beautiful characters, well animated, blah blah blah. That's not what we're going to do. That's game graphics production. But what we have to achieve with our students is that they are capable of creating that content, that they are used to that software, that they can use that software, that they understand the software, so that they can write software for it, so that they can help the artists, so that they understand the process. So for us, it's for the game development students, they need to know the software. They need to be able to work with it. Doesn't need to be the most beautiful next-gen artwork that we've ever seen. No, that's not necessary, and the bar is a little bit less high than for game graphics production. They need to produce AAA content.
Yeah.
For us, it's just we need to know the processes. That's the goal. So drawing, I don't think we really draw actually, but we do 3D modeling. There's definitely 2D. There's 2D work in Photoshop in the first year. You need to know the stuff if you want to get going easily and quickly in game development.
Yeah, perfect. There's more questions I
Yeah.
see from the chat. So what are the requirements for a computer? What type of
Yeah.
laptop do I need to get for game development
Yeah.
specifically, or just for in DAE in general?
Well, it's actually DAE general. I think there's only one device now that is recommended. If you want to buy yourself one in the media market or online on whatever, Amazon, make sure that it's a laptop that has an RTX graphics card.
Yeah.
Take the most recent one you can get, if there's still one, with a decent CPU, lots of memory, and a big ass SSD. That's definitely necessary.
So as long as they follow the requirements and are within that or higher,
you'll need a decent and recent gaming computer. That's what you're gonna need. We have a program here at Howest where we, with a partner, we work together with a partner where you can order a PC that we recommend. And the advantage there is that you get that PC. It has a 3-year warranty, which happens to be exactly the amount of years that you should spend here. The advantage of that program is not that I want you to buy per se that computer, but the advantage is if it breaks down, you pick it up, you go to that service provider, and it's around the corner here. You get a new one, you go back to class, and you can continue. Being here without a laptop is always a difficult situation.
I mean, there's not much you can do,
so
probably.
if you have to bring your laptop back to the media market, it's always a problem. But qua requirements, a decent and recent gaming computer would do the trick, yes.
And another question we have, do you still need to 3D model in game development or optimize models for game engines?
I mean, qua courses, yes. I mean, there will be a course in the first year and a course in the second year where you indeed are working with 3D models. So you'll be modeling. That's the goal. That's what we want. You need to know the entire process, because you need to be able to write software that helps that process. For all I care, our programmers need to be able to write the tools that are available in the software that we teach you. So you need to go through the motions. So yes, you'll be modeling, not too much. To put it in percentages, I think that in the first year you have like 40% is art and 60% is programming, and in the second year it's even less, and it's 80% programming and 20% art. So.
Yeah, and even the art then is not on the same level as in game graphics.
No. But you cannot underestimate the importance of the fact that we give this art classes. I really mean it. You stand out, and there's a lot of demand. There are a lot of people that want to get into game development. It's not that easy, and being such a polyvalent person is really what makes our students so wanted in our industry. I mean, the employment numbers of our students in game development are really, really good, and I'm not lying, compared to some other categories. So that's what makes you stand out, and be proud of that.
Also, another question: can you still manage to follow courses if you don't have a good laptop, but you have a good desktop at home?
Computer at home, yeah. Certainly for the first year. For the first year, that is not a problem at all. I mean, we're not the complex graphics stuff happens in the second year. So for the first year, you can definitely start with whatever you have, actually. And by then you will be able to judge whether or not your laptop can pull it through. So start with that. If you really have a decent desktop at home, I'd say start with it. You'll see how quickly your laptop burns down during classes in the second semester. And if that's too fast, you can still buy a PC or a decent laptop in the second year.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I would recommend.
Do you have any tips to give to future students that
Yeah.
want to join?
One tip that I always give is that um, it's not because you like gaming that you like game development. For example, I really like beer, I don't want to brew beer. That's a nasty business. I really like bread, but I don't want to get up in the morning at 4 in the night to bake bread. No, I hate that. I wouldn't want to do that. So there's a big difference between playing games and making games. It's not because you like playing games that you also like making games. So before you decide to start in game development, you should be sure for yourself that game development is something for you. So what I recommend that you do is go online, download a game engine, Unity, RPG Maker, Godot, Unreal, whatever. Take an engine, maybe not the hardest one, so maybe not Unreal yet, but follow some tutorials. Certainly Unity. If you download Unity in the client, there's lots of step-by-step tutorials that guide you to the process of creating a game, programming a game, and try that and see if it's fun. Put it on itch.io, make a game. And if you say, all right, that was really cool, then then we can help you. Come to us, and we'll teach you all the tips and tricks that you need to go on that path.
Yeah,
that's my number one tip.
Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us today.
Welcome.
It was very nice to have you here on board. So we're going to take a short break of 10 minutes, and we'll be back with our next major, which is interactive sound production. Thank you all for still following that are still following us, and we'll see you in a bit. And welcome back, everyone. Thank you all for staying tuned with us. Now we have our major interactive sound production, and with us is the major coordinator of interactive sound production, Alexander De Weppe. Welcome, Alexander. Thank you for joining us today to answer all the questions for the students.
Good morning to you. Hi, Sandra.
Hey, it's nice to have you here. So, interactive sound production. It's actually one of our newest majors in DAE in the current curriculum. What will students learn in this major?
We are the new kid on the block, aren't we?
Yes.
We have been working on this for a couple of years. We noticed some time back that the visual qualities of most of our group projects was achieving extremely high standards, and that sound, some of the projects really dealt with it in a proper way, but sound was quite often, and as is sometimes still in the industry, a bit of an afterthought. We wanted to tackle that, and we made a little investigation in the Flemish higher education range, also the European education range, and noticed that there is actually not really a school that properly tackles the skills necessary to deal with audio and non-linear productions, as is the case in games. There's a lot of film schools out there that really tackle audio for audiovisual production in an extremely good way, but actually dealing with the specific requirements for nonlinear production, such as games, we noticed there was a lack of programs that dealt with that. We made a bit of a search. We looked for people who had the necessary skills, put together a program. We tried and tested the program with the industry, and now we are in the second year of the rollout of this relatively new major, and training people with the skills that we deem necessary and industry deems necessary to be able to fulfill the duties of a junior audio programmer in a game company.
So, do you need to be a musician in order to follow the course?
I'm going to answer in a slightly double fashion there. It never hurts if you are active with music, if you are passionate about music, if you compose your own music, but that is all linear audio production. Also in industry, whenever you reach a certain level of a game production, most of the audio assets, let me rephrase that, the music assets, they will be outsourced to a composer, but then they still need to be implemented in the game. And musical assets are not the only audio assets that we use in a game. There are other things that need to be tackled, ambiences, sound effects, there's voices to be recorded, there's dialogue, there's vocalizations that need to be implemented in the game. And they all need to be programmed in a certain way because they are, as I said, non-linear, but they are triggered by the action and they're character based. So it's a completely different workflow. It's a completely different pipeline, and we gear towards that. If you are knowledgeable about music, because also in the program we teach our students how they have to prepare an audio brief to give to a producer, to a sound guy, to a musician, a composer. If you want to communicate in a proper way with a musician, you have to be knowledgeable about the vocabulary that musician uses. But then again, once that musician or composer delivers the audio assets, the musical assets that you want to implement into your game, it's up to you to make them work within that context. And that is a different ball game altogether. So the answer is, if you are a musician and you are passionate about this, it really doesn't hinder you, and it will actually help you along, but it's not necessary. And we'll try in the second year in one of the courses to make you knowledgeable enough about the vocabulary and the vernacular to help you communicate with composers in a certain way. And actually, our part of the pipeline, our part of the process is a different one than you would expect from any regular musician.
So thank you for that. We already see that there is already a question. So how intense will the math be in the in the interactive sound production?
Well, that really ties into the thing that we are a minor or a choice program under the game development degree still. Both programming and math are an integral part of the pipeline. You cannot implement audio assets in a game engine if you are not knowledgeable about programming. And the math that the game development people or game development students get is shared with the interactive sound production major. So there's one course on mathematics, applied math and physics, and it's a difficult course for our students, but it's an overcomable hurdle, shall I put it that way? And then there's 2 programming courses as opposed to the 4 programming courses that are inherent in the game development curriculum. So there is a good deal of programming. We also require it for some of our more fun second year courses, like in Audio Lab, we work in the environment JUICE, and a working knowledge of C++ is necessary to be able to work on building up your own audio plugins, making your own audio apps or applications for mobile devices. You need to be knowledgeable about C++ and you need to be knowledgeable about program to a certain extent. So math and programming are integral parts. They are predominantly present in the first year of the program. So that's the more technical, the more demanding year. And actually you should look at our course program as the second year being the reward, where we go more in depth and more in detail into the more audio specific domains, whereas the first year there's only 2 courses that actually really deal with sound design, being sound design and sound project. So it is trying, it is demanding on our students. Our passing rates are not phenomenal, but there is a level of reward, and we devised the program in such a way that our students, when they achieve that first year, they really get to develop their audio chops in the second year, and also their skill level is up to par with what is expected in industry to be able to make it as a junior audio programmer.
So how many hours of math knowledge do you think is necessary to survive this course?
Well, once again, there is a nuanced answer to that. I think it is advisable for people who want to enter in this program to have a good working knowledge of math. But the way I understand it, the math courses they start at the ground level, depending on how many hours of math you had in middle education. You will have to work a bit harder, or it will be slightly easier for you. I think if you only had 3 hours of math per week, it's going to be trying, and you should be wary of that. Or maybe take a preparatory course, summer course in math, just to up the ante, get slightly better in your chops. I will refer to what my colleague Alex just mentioned. Have a look at what programming entails. Try to already get a better grip on mathematics as well prior to enrolling in the program. I don't want students to take full preparatory year program courses, because I don't think that is necessary. But if you are wary about that and keep in the back of your head that is going to be the bottleneck in the program, that's the thing that most of our students struggle with. And even then, there are exceptions. We have students that also obtain 16 out of 20 in programming and that pass math with flying colors. These are the parts of the curriculum that are the most demanding on our ISP students.
So what kind of students are you looking for in the interactive sound production major? What kind of students should apply for this major? What would their perfect profile be?
Well, let me start by saying, if you are only in it to be a musician, then there's other programs out there for you, and I really recommend going to one of the national conservatories that there are out there in higher education. If it's really music you want to be making, then this is the wrong degree for you. In the positive, if you are really passionate about audio, and that's more broad than just music making. If you are passionate about audio production, if you like to play around with different plugins and digital audio workstations, if you are passionate about creating a workflow in that, if you like to synchronize, for instance, and that's the first year, the ground level, if you like to synchronize music and audio assets with moving pictures, then this might be up your alley. If you are passionate about a certain game and you have the sensation that this game was made so much better by the audio, and we all have examples of that, then this might be right up your alley, because that is mainly what we try to impart in our students.
Well, then what kind of jobs can you do once you would graduate?
Well, the profile we are really trying to cater for is junior audio programmers. So guys who get a brief and who are asked to basically program and implement a whole bunch of different types of audio assets into a game, making the game come alive, because that is really what we do. These are the guys. This is the skill that we envision for our students. Now, there's also guys who might have more affinity with the making of the sounds, the junior sound designers, and that's basically the more artistic leg of our degree. That's equally valid, and there are, if I look at games jobs direct, for instance, there are always a couple of vacancies open for both profiles. So junior audio programmers and junior sound designers out there.
So the interactive sound production it's focused on games, but can you work in the film industry once you graduate as well and do sound for film?
Well, most of the programs that are specifically focused at that, they are 3-4 year programs in higher education, and really only tackle that. We try to tackle audio-visual linear production, just the basics, the need to know, so that basically we can work on cutscenes or animation videos. We try to tackle that in the first year, although we have a couple of callbacks in the second year program as well. So our students are completely and utterly able to do that, but the path towards mastery is doing that a whole bunch of hours. In our program, we don't have a sufficient amount of time to become really, really super proficient in audiovisual production. That's also not our goal. We aim at nonlinear production. But our students are perfectly able. The first year exam projects both entail a animation video that was made in-house, and doing the complete sound design, the complete linear sound design for those projects. So our students are completely able to do that.
Yeah. So if they work more on their skills, they have the basics knowledge.
If they hone their chops, if they do, I'm going to, this is a platitude, but if they do the 10,000 hours required to achieve mastery, then they will be able to do audio visual and linear production, no problems and no questions asked.
So how can the student actually prepare himself or herself before coming to to DAE to follow this major, is there anything they can do beforehand to just look into things to?
Well, we deal with, let me put it this way, the specific things about the interactive sound production as compared to more musical and more audiovisual programs in higher education. What sets us apart is that we work in engine, we work with programming, and we work with middleware. So that's basically Fmod, that's Wise. We do audio handling in Unreal and in Unity, and our students get a good deep dive into C++ in the first year so that they can work with Juice. Those are the softwares that we try to work with as much as possible. So if they just have a little look, maybe as Alex already mentioned as well, have a look at a tutorial on how Unity or Unreal handles audio, and if that really tickles their fancy, if they are inspired by that and they want to continue on that line, well, then they definitely fit the bill, and then they're the right profile to come here.
So a question from the chat is, what are useful skills to have beforehand for this course other than a background in music and some math knowledge?
I would say we are now running this program. We started about 3 years ago. I think having a good sense of math, musical background, it helps. It's not a need to have, and just basically being slightly informed. Have a look at those engines, have a look at those middlewares. You don't need to be, we start at the ground level on all of the softwares that we teach. If you haven't opened a digital audio workstation ever in your life, I recommend getting the free license, the trial license, which is a perennial trial license, so to say. But we urge you to buy the software of Reaper, which you will get a perennial license for if you enter in the program. It is not an expensive license. I think it's about $60, but you get it. You get the official license when you enter in the program. It's a very powerful digital audio workstation. Look at a couple of tutorials. There's great tutorials on YouTube for Reaper, and they go way beyond just linear musical audio production. Just have a look at some of those. That I think is also. We need people, we need students who are curious, who do not shy away from a little bit of hard work, and who want to expand their knowledge. Something else to look into maybe is sound spatialization. Recently, a lot of digital audio workstations have opened up vast possibilities in terms of spatialized audio. Logic recently opened their plugin for Dolby Atmos, which allows you to work in like super complex audio spatialization, which we tackle in one of our second year courses. We have 4.0, which is surround, 4.1, 5.0, 5.1. Now we're going to move into ambisonic. Did I leave something out? And Dolby Atmos as well. So. Yeah, it's a field that is still currently very much under development. So you will also be asked to keep up with the game. A good interested view on life is also probably a pretty darn important requirement, more so than having all the skills ready before you enter into the program.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Alexander, for
Pleasure.
joining us. It was very informative. For everybody else following us, stay tuned. We're going to have our next major independent game production. And if you have any questions, you can also go on the Howest Sid-In page, and there you have Teams linked to each major and also a general one where lecturers are there to help you. Thank you, and see you in a bit. And we're back with our next major for today, independent game production. With us, we have our wonderful colleague, Luna Fearens, which is also the major coordinator of independent game production. Welcome, Luna. Thank you for joining us. It's nice to have you here. Can you tell us more about independent game production? What will a student learn during the 3 years here as an independent game production student?
Yeah, all right. I think the question is more, what will a student not learn? Because independent game production is the major where you learn to make a game from A to Z. Like from start to finish, you even will learn how to market your game and if you want to start your own game studio. So we focus on every aspect, so the technical, the art, the business, the communication and soft skills even, and of course, most importantly, the game design. So how do you design a fun game for your target audience?
Yeah. So what is the goal to have when you graduate? Is it to be a game designer? Is it to be a...
Well, honestly, you can go whatever way you want within the game industry. Not even the game industry, like there's also people ending up in more applied games or serious games, which are not like the fun games, but more like educational games, for example. But yeah, you could become a game designer, a producer, a developer, maybe an artist even. But what a lot of students also want to do when they come here, and some of them actually succeed at it, is start their own game studio. Once you graduate, there's a lot of here in Kortrijk we have like a nice game ecosystem that keeps growing and growing, and there's like DAE Studios, which is an accelerator which helps our students when they graduate. They can go there and pitch their game ID, and from there they get more help and like more coaching to start their own studio. So that is definitely a possibility. But you could also become a game designer or go work at this already existing studio. Since you learn a lot of skills, it's up to you to find out and focus on what you like most.
So if we compare game graphics production and independent game development, what are the differences in there? Because you still learn some art-focused courses in independent game production, but what is the difference from a student who graduates from IGP and from GGP?
Well, game graphics production, and I think Dries was already here today, focuses more on like the big AAA studios, so like Ubisoft, EA, DICE, like all the big studios. And if you go work there, usually you go there to become a character artist or somebody who models all the guns or on the environments, and you focus on that one thing. For IGP, usually you work, well, normally we focus on smaller studios, not on the big studios where there's 200 employees. Usually there's maybe a team of 5 people. Or like if it's a bigger indie studio, it could be up to 60 people. Not sure we can call them indie studios anymore, but like smaller companies in general. And the reason being we teach you a lot of skills is that in those smaller studios, it's up to you to take up multiple roles. You're not just going to be modeling shoes. You're also going to be helping with the game design, helping maybe even with the programming, depending on what your focus is. So it is not just that one thing you specialize in. So that's what GGP does. They specialize in that one thing they want to become. In IGP, you have a broader vision. Plus, on top of that, you also get a lot of, you get business. So you also learn how to do that part of the industry, and also soft skills. So communication and game pitching and game design is, I think, our most important skill that sets us apart from GGP, because GGP really focuses on that art profile, that technical art profile, while we also go for the game design profile, which is like, okay, how do I make fun games? How do I make game mechanics? All those things.
So would you mentioned soft skills, you learn that, but is it a requirement to have already some soft skills when you join, or is that something you can also learn slowly within the curriculum by having courses?
Well, I think most humans have soft skills. It is, I think, a requirement to be a human. But in general, of course, we don't expect you to come in here and already know from scratch how to give a masterful presentation and how to pitch a game. Of course, you don't, unless you maybe already come from a game company. You never know. But we have like actual courses. We have like a second-year course called Communication, where we actually teach you how to do all those things, how to present yourself, how to present your company and your game, but also how do you write emails to people, how do you reach out to people, how do you, even social media we see a bit. So there are courses, and like in every single course in DAE there is some way of like soft skills in there. Like even there's a lot of group projects, of course, because you have to learn how to work in groups. So that through those group projects, you also learn those skills. Yeah. So yeah, it is. We don't expect you to already be able to do that, but we will help you and teach you how to do some things, and it's up to you to grow in that, of course.
So what kind of students should join the independent game production major? What kind of students are you looking for that would suit this major?
I think people who are passionate about making games. And by that I mean like actually thinking, like having these creative, crazy ideas of, I really like this game. Wouldn't it be fun if there was a game like this? Those people who really want to make their own studio, have crazy game ideas they want to develop. Even if you don't have that, of course you need to be passionate about making games, otherwise I don't think this is the right fit for you. But even if you're not like the super wild idea guy, there's still a place for you here, because we also, in our indie studio, we also need a person who wants to develop the games, who just wants to work together with a crazy idea person. So if you're passionate about making games and you really want to get into that, then yes, go to IGP. If you're more like, okay, I want to work on games, but I want to create only characters, then go to GGP. Yeah. So,
what type of 3D modeling, or which 3D modeling software is used in the independent game production?
Well, we start off with Maya. like every other major. In the first year, everyone gets Autodesk Maya. But from the second year on, we don't teach you any new, well, there are always new softwares. But if you feel like I want to use Blender, which is a free modeling software, you're free to do that. As long as your end result is like has the requirements it needs, it's all fine for the teachers. But in the first year, we start off with Maya, so everyone has the same software. But honestly, once you learn one modeling software, it's really easy to switch to another.
Yeah.
But it is Maya to start off with, and then from the second year on, you can choose.
So how would the student prepare for it? They can maybe follow a few tutorials to join IGP, or
Well, yeah, you could maybe download Unity. So that's the main game engine we work with. There's a lot of cool tutorials on Unity online. They even have like Unity Learn. I think it's free. They made it free during Corona. I don't know if it's still free. But there's like, maybe you can recreate like some Mario platformer game. You don't have to, because we learn everything from scratch, but it might be fun to already play around with that a bit. Same for Blender. It's a free software. It's a modeling software. You can already dig around in that. Photoshop, maybe you can download a trial and dig around in that. We don't expect you to like go and start learning programming on your own, because sometimes it's also you teach yourself the wrong things and then you have to unlearn them when you come here. But if you just like already want to try out some stuff, I'd say download Unity, play around with it. Same for Blender.
and let's say I've never programmed in my life and I want to join independent game production. Is that going to affect me?
No, because we start from scratch.
Yeah.
We have a lot of students who have never had any programming. So we really start from zero. Of course, if you already had some in high school, it's always like, okay, a nice extra, because then for you it will go a bit easier. And you can maybe concentrate on then another course you're struggling with, because there will always, nobody's perfect in all courses. There will always be a course that's a bit more difficult for you. But you don't have to. You really don't have to. We start from zero. So if you have zero programming experience, that's fine.
And which programming language would you learn in?
C#.
C#. Okay. What is the main difference if I want to do game development or independent game production? Because you learn C#, but do you need C++ as well?
No, because, well, we learn C# mainly because that's also Unity's main programming language. Well, the difference is like GD, it's way more in depth. It's way more under the hood programming. It's behind the scenes. While IGP, the programming we have here is more to create your games, to create the game mechanics, the gameplay mechanics and stuff. It's not, I mean, you also get math and physics, of course, but it's not as in-depth as you would see in GD. If you feel like, oh, but I only want to do programming, then I'd say GD is your thing. If you say, okay, no, I want to make fun games, I want to design games, then IGP. But the programming, it is different, though I wouldn't say it is per se easier. Each major has their own difficulties. They're all equally hard, but the programming in GD is just way more focused and way more in general. So that will be, in that regard, you could say it's more difficult.
Do you have any words of encouragement for future students who would like to join independent game production?
Yeah, if you're passionate about games and you want to make games and you want to, just make the world a better place with games, then this really, come to IGP. We love creative people. We love our students as well. Don't be afraid. That's, I think, even if you think like, oh, I never had programming, or I've never held a pencil in my life, I don't know how to draw, I don't know how to do 3D. Nobody that comes from high school knows this stuff. That's why we start from zero, and still we have every year people graduating who come from the same situation as you. So it is not impossible. Just don't be afraid.
So for Belgian students, they can choose between English and Dutch. Which language would you recommend to?
I always recommend English. We've only done English for IGP for 2 years, but this year we had 2 classes English and only 1 Dutch, because more and more people starting to switch to English. Reason being, even if you work here in Belgium, there's a big chance there will be international people. And just in general, if you want to market your game, you're not just going to market, well, depending on what kind of game, but if you want to make like an actual indie game that you want to have like a worldwide success, you're not going to market it in Dutch. So practicing your English is not a bad thing. Plus, on top of that, most courses, all the software we give, all the terminology is always in English. So even though you follow the Dutch curriculum, a lot of the terms will be in English anyway. Plus, in our English curriculum, we also have our international students. So it's always cool to meet people from other countries and maybe, maybe even like get inspired by different nationalities and stuff. So I think the English curriculum is always a better option. Even if you feel like, but yeah, I didn't get a lot of English in high school. Don't be afraid. It will come. You will get used to it. Again, it starts very basic, and the more you talk English, the more you will get used to it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Luna, for being here today,
You're welcome.
our guest. We will go back to a small short break, and then afterwards we will come with our 3D animation major. Stay tuned, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. with our 3D animation major. With us is Dirk Lambrecht, our 3D animation major coordinator. Welcome, Dirk.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you for being here with us.
Okay.
As a beginning, just tell us a bit more about 3D animation. What will a student learn during this course?
Well, within 3D animation, finally it's there. I mean, it's now there for 2 years. And we had animation and visual effects. It used to call known as 3D production and visual effects. But we were thinking, why does a VFX student need to know about visual effects and vice versa? Why does an animation student needs to be in the Green Key studio? So we decided, let's split it up and make also the major animation. And before, you could also choose a minor animation in game graphics, so on the side of the graphics, on the games. And so we just decided, let's make it our own proper major, because there is also a lot of questions coming from the industry. And in our course, we have 4 tracks of animation, where they have character animation. First, it starts with body mechanics. You learn to know about the body, and you learn to analyze time. It's playing with animation, is playing with nothing else but playing with time. So they had to analyze reference material. First, we start with Buster Keaton. So make the best out of this with this beautiful reference. And then in the second part, in the animation 2, we will start acting. We will also learn about the film code. What is a close-up? What is a long shot? When will I use it? As a matter of fact, we could call this staging the scene, visual storytelling, also the pre-production pipeline with storyboards, animatics, 3D blockouts. Then you are ready for animation 3, where you really are going to animate dialogues, monologues, heavy character animation with interaction, and then we have animation 4, and then we will see the motion capture pipeline and quadrupeds. That means instead of 2 legs, we will go on with 3 poses. So we will continue with 4 legs, animals and things like that. And then we do as in the industry, 3 students, small group project, let's say. You create a scene with several shots, 3 students do that, and each student animates his own character. So they really have to look in the interaction with those. So that's really the animation track as it is now. But then again, we have lots of supporting courses next to the animation. Rigging, for instance. Rigging, that's the body, the biped or quadruped that you use with the handlers to animate the character. Yes, you get rigs and you start animating, but it's better to create your own custom human rig as a biped, and then you know all the issues that can happen. Then you know a little bit about scripting. If something goes wrong, for instance, you want to animate a hand and suddenly it stands in the wrong direction, you can solve it on your own.
Yeah.
And we also have the 3D pipeline course, which is make a model, put a rig in it. That's really an introductory course, and it's a mechanical rig, let's say a bulldozer. And then they can animate it, and a bulldozer is not very nice splined animations as with character and character animation. It's more like mechanical animation where you see a bulldozer doing like this, so you forget lots of the 12 principles of animation. Because, that's also one thing I forgot about. It's not only analyzing reference and creating your own reference and acting and exaggeration. We stick to the 12 principles of animation, because that's really the base of animation, and we keep on going, follow through, overlap, exaggeration, staging, things like that.
So that was a lot of information about each course.
And it's early in the morning. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry,
but
guys.
what type of students would fit this profile? What type of students should apply? Like, they're interested in animation, but they're also interested in other things.
Yes, they're interested in the magic of animation, where you can make those characters come to life, let them yell, let them sing, let them love, let them do whatever they want to do. And it's not only the typical cartoony animation in a sense like Pixar, it's also for realistic characters. Then we think at Deadpool. imagine, like in the last year, the final year, you get the module group projects where we combine the VFX students along with the 3D animation students. And it's possible that they do an animation film, in a sense like cartoony Pixar, or they film in a green key studio, they work with actors, and they implement 3D elements and also 3D characters into it. And then you use realistic characters. That's also something that is possible. So, if you are interested in 3D animation, it's not only a Pixar thing, it's also a realistic thing, and it's also catered towards games, because now in 3D4, that's new. Oh, that's just the name of a course in the second year. We also going to look at the pipeline of the virtual production pipeline in Unreal.
Yeah.
So, if you're interested in all these things, please be welcome. Please come over. It's a fun education.
So would you need any other skills, like let's say you need art skills to come to study 3D animation?
If I compare this, on the game side, we have coders and we have artists. Let's say game development and game graphics. And on our side, as we the film part, we have the VFX people. Those are the technical guys. And we are the artistic guys. Of course, the VFX major is also an artistic major, but it became more technical. And with ours, you can compare it with game graphics in a sense that game graphics, well, you can compare a lot, but the difference is game graphics is more real-time based and ours is pre-rendered. Yeah, that's the difference. So, what's going on? Oh, I lost it.
We can move forward. Would I need any...
Oh no, it was for the students, right? That was the thing. Sorry, guys. So with us, with 3D animation, oh, I lost it again. Come on. What kind of students? Ah, the art parts. The art part, sorry. The 2D, yes, you need to know about drawing. That's exactly the same thing what they do with GGP. You have classes together in pre-production 1 and pre-production 2. We start with a white sheet. You put a horizon on it, you put vanishing points on it, and suddenly you have a cube above or underneath the horizon. After a couple of weeks, you have a drill platform or an oil platform, things like that. So that's what you really learn in second semester. You learn more about organic forms. That's all drawing with perspective. And then in the second year, you have character design. You really design your characters. Also live drawing with models that are sitting there. That you really know the anatomy of a human body, because you need to know the anatomy anyways as a 3D animator. So there's also a 2D part in it as well, but no 2D animation, because sometimes that's a question I get a lot. Do we also have 2D animation? No, you don't.
So if I never drawn in my life, would I be able to follow this course, or will I get lost completely in all the drawing part?
Yeah, well, once you had drawing classes somewhere in your education before, but yeah, we continue with perspective. As a matter of fact, very academic drawing in perspective, very academic drawing in anatomy. And one thing I can tell you, if you're scared of these drawing courses, go to a bookstore and find a book how to draw perspective, and that's something that can already help a lot. And draw live. Sit around, take a sketchbook with you and start already drawing, that you pick up that talent again. But we learn it from a white sheet. It goes pretty fast. First thing you do is try to draw a straight line with your hand, and then draw circles. And you keep on drawing circles until you say, wow, I made a nice circle. Wow, I drew a nice line. And then it continues and it continues. And it goes, it's steep. Yeah, it goes fast.
Yeah, so let's say if I choose this major, do I only have to work in the film industry, or can I work in the game industry as an animator?
Yeah, definitely. We learn you the craftsmanship of animation with the 12 principles. And in games, there are a lot of the mixamo animations. That means that you have a database with animation that you can use, but some parts you have to animate on your own. And therefore, we're totally catered for the games as well. You and as we now also have this brand new course that is now starting for the first time in the second semester, they also learn about the Unreal pipeline, so the real-time pipeline. So they will learn, okay, that's how I can now also implement my animations in a game. So yes, and as a matter of fact, if you work in studios and you're in the animation department, you do the animations, and then the tech guys will implement all the animations in the engine, where you have the idle animations and also the animations that you have to animate on your own.
So, are there any overlaps between other majors, like with game graphics production or the VFX major?
With game graphics production, as a matter of fact, in the first year, 7 courses are the same.
Yeah.
And that is a lot. That means if you're doubting, because that is the typical doubt that they have, we are the most artistic majors, game graphics and 3D animations, and students doubt. And if you change in the first semester, you already had 4 courses. If you change after a year, you already had 7 out of 10 courses that you have together. So that's okay. And the same with VFX. We have 6 courses in the first year that we have together. So out of those 10 courses, if you're really still doubting and you taste of it in the first semester and you say, oops, maybe I made the wrong choice, it's very easy to switch. Of course, you missed a couple of courses, but then you find the right direction further.
So, if I already have experience in animation, would it be good that I still follow this program?
Definitely, yeah.
So, there's additional things that you can improve
There are
on.
definitely additional things because we are a tech education as well. I mean, the mocap pipeline, you can learn 3D by yourself, but we, with our teachers team, everybody has a specialization. And we really dig very deep to learn you all the skills. And also with the acting, if you want to be a good animator, you do lots of acting, you do lots of experience, you do lots of exercises that you're getting trained better and better and better. Because it's not that you do once a steps, a walk cycle, and once did some posings that you're an animator. No, it's really about experience as well.
And you have a lot of group projects within the curriculum. How does that look like for a 3D animation students? What do they do within that project?
Within that group project, well, we mix them together because now is the first time that we, as I mentioned already a couple of times before, that we are going to introduce the real-time pipeline in 3D for that course, second semester, second year. And what we did before, where we have, but you can't see it that yes, this one, yes, this one. First, well, this is a mix of game graphics students and animators together. So they want to create a film in the Unreal pipeline, and that's how it really worked, and that's really fun. So you can mix these together. You can mix VFX students with animators. As I mentioned before, they want to have realistic or cartoony characters in a complete filmed environment with even green key footage. They can mix it all together. And they are the guys, the animators, they are the guys who make the characters, the rigs, the animations, but they have a solid background in 3D arts as well. So you mix them very well together, these students, for group projects.
Yeah. So, could I work at Pixar? Let's say I do DAE, could I work at Pixar? I think that's a question students ask a lot.
Well, and we had Frank Albers from... unfortunately, due to Corona, he couldn't come over. He worked at Pixar for a long, long, long time. He's retired now, but he still do once in a while jobs for them. I mean, he's retired pretty early because, you work with heavy deadlines at Pixar. And they asked him exactly the same question. And if you say, if you got a good portfolio, give it a chance, try it out. Yes, and we definitely work towards Pixar. Before, where we only had 2 courses of animation, as I mentioned before, not that much of experience, not that much of exercises. So now they have a lot of more experience, and I can already tell you, I was in the jury in animation 3, and I was thrilled by the results they had, that you could really say, this interaction exercise is brilliant. Let's give him a 17, because it's fantastic. And with that, with those things and a little bit extra portfolio that you create, yeah, give it a try at Pixar.
That's amazing. Any last words that you would give to students who would like
Oh.
to join?
If you're fascinated by the magic of animation, come and join us at the Major 3D Animation. See you soon. Voilà.
Thank you, Dirk. And everyone, we're going to be back in a while with our last major for today, which is the visual effects major. So stay on and we'll see you in a bit. Thanks, Dirk. And we're back with our last major for today. So we have our visual effects major with Robin Rodet, our major coordinator of visual effects. Hey Robin, thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us more what visual effects is about? We had now 3D animation that covered the animation part. What will students learn in visual effects?
So in visual effects, we have a strong focus on 3D skills, but that is something we share with most of the majors that we teach at DAE. What is special about VFX is that we focus on image manipulation. So we will take footage of film that we made ourselves or that we have available, and we will try to manipulate it in a certain way to make it look realistic, to integrate 3D elements, to integrate maybe explosions, everything that we made ourselves, we're going to try to put in there. So that is something none of the other majors do. We really take that footage and we make it special. We make it so that, for example, you can have actors walking around in front of a green screen. We will take out that green screen. We will cut out the actors, so to say. We will add a giant castle in the background. We will add the nice background that we filmed somewhere and combine all of those together to make it look realistic, to make it look like one seamless shot. That is not everything we learn at VFX, because we learn a lot more, but that is the core of what differentiates us from the other majors.
So would you say this is an artistic major or more of a technical major? Do you have a drawing?
So in VFX, you do not have drawing courses. Yeah, we are an artistic major and a technical major at the same time. If we were to divide it in percentages, which is always a hard thing to do because it all blends together, I would say we're slightly more technical than we are artistic. At least we're not artistic in the traditional sense that we're going to be drawing things, we're going to be designing things. We are going to put our artistry in how we integrate elements in 3D. We are also going to create 3D things. We are also going to learn to sculpt, for example. We are also creating effects and explosions, and you can let your imagination run wild on that. So in that sense, we do have a lot of artistry, but we are focused on that correct technical integration into footage, into a lot of random objects that we blend together. That is what we focus on. So in a sense, I would say if you consider that to be more technical, then we are more technical. But there's a lot of artistic freedom there.
So you say you would do 3D, you would also do sculpting, but that's also things you can do in game graphics. So what is the difference between choosing VFX and instead of game graphics?
It's in the name, right? We are for film, and game graphics is for games. That's the biggest differentiation you can have. So if you want to work in the film industry, you come to VFX. If you want to work in the game industry, you go to games. It all depends on the type of software that eventually you use or the kind of workflow that you use to get to a certain result. We have a slightly different workflow than the people on the game side. Does that mean, for example, if you study VFX, that you'll never be able to work on games? Let's say you're interested in both. No, we learn and we share a lot of the same skills, and vice versa. It's just that different approach to certain things and a couple of more unique elements to game or to film that splits us apart. But if you are an experienced artist, which you will kind of be after 3 years, or at least you'll be an artist that knows how to teach yourself some new skills, you'll still be able to switch in between the two if that is something you're interested in. I know a lot of students that start are unsure of what they want to do. I would just say go with your gut feeling. If you want to switch, there's always a way to do so. And even after 3 years of studying, after completing your bachelor, you can still switch in the industry. A lot of people do that as well.
So what kind of job positions would I be able to do in the industry once I graduate visual effects?
So we would be working more on the post-production side of things. A compositor, so that's someone who takes all these different camera elements, combines them together like a background, like 3D models, like actors, bringing them together. A lighting artist is something we can do. We light scenes in 3D. A 3D artist, which is more general, but that's also something we do. Basically, if you look at the website, every single course you see on there, you just read the description. That is, in and of itself, a job you can do within the industry. So if people want to get a good idea of what you can do, just take a look at the website. Just go through it and think that every single course you're learning is a job in and of itself. In larger companies, those will be split out. In smaller companies, those will be more combined.
So can a student prepare himself beforehand before joining visual effects in a way?
There are some things you can do. Now, while I wouldn't say they're a requirement, it's always handy if you know your way around the camera. We're very focused on images, so knowing how, for example, exposure works when you're taking pictures, when you're producing images, that already helps you a lot. It's not a hard requirement. It's one of those things that'll make your life considerably easier and just more pleasant when you're studying this major. If you have a certain interest in that filmography, in camera work, then you'll be in the correct place here.
So if, for instance, let's say you would also like to learn some drawing, would that be possible within the VFX major? You would have to maybe take courses from other majors?
If you're interested in drawing, this really isn't the major for you. Like I said, we do artistic things, but we're mostly focused on the 3D side of it. You'll have to learn that in your own spare time, which you'll have a little bit, or take some extra courses if drawing is really what you want to do.
And in terms of different softwares, what do you use within the VFX majors? Which type of softwares do you use?
So we use Autodesk Maya. That's our main 3D modeling software. We use ZBrush. That's where we sculpt in. We use the entire Adobe suite to edit in, to create some effects in. We have a strong focus on Houdini, which is a VFX simulation package that also produces procedural results. Those are all terms you'll come to grips with when you study here. So those are some of the major packages that we work with.
And what kind of opportunities are there in Belgium and abroad?
The core of the VFX industry is still, and the entire film industry by default, is still London, so is England. There are a lot of opportunities within Belgium, so don't worry about that. There's a lot of jobs here. You might also want to think about not going for the traditional route. So what our students can also do, there's a whole field of, for example, architectural visualization, where architects want to create renders of their 3D created houses and make them look good, make them look realistic. That's what we do. We make things look good. We make things look realistic or stylized depending on the result that we want. So there's also job opportunities there. There's constantly rapidly evolving new sectors that are popping up that our students would be a good fit for. If you're talking about abroad, there's a film industry in almost any country. So that is also where you could go work. The main hubs are still London and Canada. So England and Canada, I would say, if you've got your eyes set on abroad. But there's also job opportunities in Belgium, yes.
So group projects within visual effects, how do they look? Because in every major, there's, in the end, in the second year, especially in the third year where you do group work, what is the role of a VFX students within that group project?
So it'll depend, right? You'll get combined, usually depending on the type of project you want to make, with a couple of animation students. You'll start to divide the roles in among yourself. Because VFX students are so well versed on the 3D side of things, they can tackle a lot of things. You can, at a certain point in the project, depending on what your pipeline needs, you can be modeling, you can be creating the assets, you can be creating the effects that you're going to be using. And then as we progress towards a later stage, or also in the beginning, you can be filming things. As you progress towards a later stage, you'll be integrating those elements together. You'll be editing them. You'll be cutting them together, creating the nice final sort of short, I wouldn't call it film, but short sequence that you're creating.
Well, that's about it from me. I don't think there's any questions from the chat. I would like to thank you a lot, Robin, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And for everyone else who still has questions, you can also go to the Teams chat via the Howest Sid-In website. You can find all the links there for each major. So go and ask your questions if you have for Robin or Dirk or anyone else of our lecturers that was there today. There's lectures from that teach other courses as well, and they will be there to help you and guide you. Thank you all for joining us, and we have another stream coming on Saturday with different topics, and next Wednesday as well. So stay tuned and be safe. Bye.